What is going on, guys? Thanks for checking out another podcast. We've been gone for a little while. I want to apologize for being a little MIA, but we have been going through a big life change. We've moved. We had a big family vacation and had a lot of projects at the house, and it was just a time I didn't really have the time for the podcast. I wasn't putting it to rest forever, but I needed to just take a little break and focus on getting everything here at the house done. We're building a big shop in the backyard for the new Eastern Angling headquarters, and going to have a new podcast office back there, which is going to be sweet. A lot of exciting things in the future to come for Eastern Current and Eastern Angling. But excited to be back, and I do thank y'all for clicking on this podcast to check it out. I thank y'all for your patience on this podcast episode, as I know a lot of y'all have been waiting for it. But we are back and strong as ever, and we're going to be coming back at you very consistently, like we have in the past. But before we get too far into this, I do want to talk about our sponsor for this podcast. We have two, and one, I'm going to drop it in here like I always do, is J&J Boat Services. So they're a full service detail on the water, off the water, at your house. Just incredible work. They've detailed both my boats very quickly, very, very in-depth, really, really good job. They've done a great job detailing the boats, and I do not clean my boats like I should. I do clean my boats, but the added work that they put in really makes it easy for me to just come home, spray the boat off, put it in the garage, park it in the driveway, and it's good to go. But we do have a code for those of y'all listening that can't see this little image that I've pulled up. And it's EC2022 if you call them or email them. And that's going to be 10% off your first boat detail with them. So just give them a call. It's, summer's almost here, and it's a great time to get that boat cleaned up and ready to go for next year. Or not for next year, but you might want to do it again before the following year, but for this year. And let's see, let me exit out of here. And then also, we've got a new podcast sponsor. It's T&L Table Company. They have built us an incredible podcast table that's in my garage. It's going to go into our new podcast space. And I'm actually sitting here. I can't show y'all because I'm sitting on the table or at the table, but a beautiful dining room table for us. He's out of Swansboro, North Carolina. Really, any type of like really nice custom woodwork that you need done, he can get it done for you. Definitely go check him out. I'll have J&J as well as TNL linked in all of the show notes and descriptions for the podcast and on YouTube and all that, so you can find them easily there. But guys, thank y'all so much for being a part of the Eastern Current family. We're excited to be back. We've missed y'all. We've missed creating content, and I see that as a big part of my business and my life moving forward. So we're not going anywhere. We're excited to be here, but we're gonna go ahead and bring on our super special guest all the way here from Wilmington, Cameron Pappas. What's up, man?
Not too much.
Thank you for bringing it back to life with me, a little Eastern Current podcast.
Yeah, happy to. Like the old days.
Like the old days. For a second, I thought you had a bigger shirt and hat on. I just noticed right when I started talking to you.
No, just the shirt.
You're such a local boy, though, with a bigger shirt and Bald Head Island hat on. You're a Wilmingtonite, I guess.
Yeah. Gotta rep your hometown, I guess.
Have you've been kind of all over town? Are you excited to be back and get back into the pattern of fishing and living in Wilmington?
Yeah, big time. It we were just talking a little bit before about how you leave town for a handful of weeks and come back and you're like, wow. I complain about this place every once in a while, but it really is an awesome place to live.
It is an awesome place to live.
Yeah.
No, it's so easy to always think the grass is greener, to wish you lived somewhere else, but we live in such a cool place, in such a cool state, man. I was just up in Asheville for my nephew's bachelor party. And just so cool. We were in like Burnsville, North Carolina, which I'd never been to before, kind of near Mount Mitchell. We were playing some golf and doing a little bit of trout fishing. And it was just beautiful. And just be like, the only thing that would make it better is if that was on the coast. Like if you had the mountains on the coast like you do in other states. It seems so far-fetched of a thought here in North Carolina, but so many other states have that. But And it's crazy. Isn't it Costa Rica that you can like? Aren't there trout on the streams in Costa Rica? Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know.
It'd be pretty cool. Be cool to be able to trout fish and redfish in the same day, like 45 minutes apart.
Oh my god, yeah.
The
when you find that place, let me know.
I'll let you know. Actually, I might not let you know. I might just keep it to myself.
Keep it a secret.
That's North Myrtle Beach. It's called North Myrtle Beach. But yeah, so we wanted to talk to y'all. I mean, we've been gone for a little while here on the podcast, but we're into a new season. We're into what I'd call kind of late spring, early summer. We're not like full blown summer patterns yet. The finger mullet aren't here in full force yet, but some of our states south of us, Georgia, and even the southern part of South Carolina, and up into like Charleston and a little bit further north in South Carolina, are starting to see those little bits of pushes of finger mullet and maybe a little bit more of a summer pattern, but I would still call it spring, late spring. Our mahi fishing off the beach is really good right now. I always think of that as a spring thing. We're not into that full-blown, just super warm water everywhere. But it's a really good time of year. Like these shoulder seasons, spring and fall, bringing us into summer, taking us away from winter. They always seem to be productive. They're times of transition. They're times of migratory fish. And so there's always a lot happening, a lot changing. Keeps you on your toes. Some seasons I'm like, man, late spring's awesome. Early summer's awesome. Some seasons I'm like, oh, I hate this time of year. I just want consistency. What's been kind of your take on this spring so far here in the part of North Carolina that you've been fishing? What do you feel like has been good? What do you feel like has been lacking? Kind of take me through your overview of this early to late spring, late spring to early summer.
Yeah. I would say late spring was a little bit different than late springs historically, at least for me, and specifically for redfish. Like years past, I feel like there was still a lot of lingering schools around.
Yeah.
And this year, and it's kind of weird because I don't feel like it got hot like really fast. It seemed to kind of be like a normal gradual temperature increase.
Yep.
But this year it didn't seem like there was a lot of lingering schools around, like groups of 50 to 60 to 70.
Right.
Even.
Right.
And it seemed like they got in their summer patterns like really quickly, which was I would say definitely challenging. But at the same time, if you see that starting to happen, the light bulb kind of went off in my head and said, okay, now it's time to start doing this.
Right.
And looking for them in these places, more summer pattern stuff like belly crawlers and tailors and things of that nature. So unfortunately, it wasn't the spring that like we had last year, which you had lingering schools probably up until
now.
Up until now. Whereas now you're almost already, and maybe this is just me, but already fishing to really small groups, like groups of 5, groups of 6, in a lot of singles. Yeah,
for sure. And it might be a larger overall group in a zone, but you're getting lots of shots at those fish broken up throughout, a section of marsh that originally they had been in that same exact section of marsh, but all grouped up together. It was tough, man. But I will say the one nice thing about moving into a season and expecting one thing, but having not achieving the success or the finding the amount of fish that you thought you would, it pushed us. And me and Cameron scout together a lot. We'd network. I mean, I would say Cameron, Jeff, Michael. We're all in a group of people that share all our information, and so that's a very important thing. We can look at a lot of water, and I like I've said on this podcast many times before, I think it's probably one of the most important tools is having a good network of guys that you trust. But we looked at a lot of stuff that we haven't really spent much time looking at in this winter and early spring to late spring, and found a bunch of cool stuff. Found some new fish, and unfortunately nothing that we ever found. We found lots of new groups of fish, lots of areas, and nothing ever stuck for more than like a week. So it was like just keeping us looking and looking and looking. But we stayed on the fish, but we definitely had to really work for it. Sometimes it can be the time of year that you can be a little lazy, that winter to late spring. But you haven't been able to be very lazy this year. You've had to really put a lot of effort into it. It's been good.
You and I have talked about this a little bit. I mean, in years past, you definitely have days that are kind of gimmies.
Yeah.
Like you said, you don't really have to try too hard.
As long as no one's in your spots, you're good.
Yeah, as long as no one's in your spot, you're good to go, and you're going to have a good day. But even then, there was schools in certain spots. But one, the schools weren't as big, and two, they were like way pickier than usual. Insanely picky. So, I mean, in a way, that's a good thing because it really makes you have to find new stuff, explore new territory, and kind of just figure it out. Which I think in the long run, there's always going to be years like this, right? This isn't the first year by any means where we've had a tougher than normal spring. But in the long run, it makes you a better angler overall, and definitely make you find some new baits that you like.
Yeah, that's for sure. The other thing too is it's not like it felt like there was that much of a shortage of fish. Yeah. It just felt like they were changing where they were so often, and they were pissed off all the time.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure this happened to you as well, but there was multiple times where I'd find a school like 200 plus redfish and get to fish them for like 1 or 2 days, and then and that's not hammering them.
Yeah,
like going in fishing maybe 3, and then leaving them alone, and then going back and they're either completely gone or it's like the school's gone from 200 to 50.
Right. A lot of changing, a lot of mobile fish, but and we are still seeing some of the same groups of fish that we were through the winter, or fish schooled up in the same zones, but for the most part, a lot of changing. I mean, fishing all over the place. But like I said, those are always the times of year that you learn, or the seasons that you learn and you grow a lot in the type of fisherman you are and where you're actually fishing. And there's a lot of people that are, very wrapped up in territories and zones, and like I'm going to go for my business and for my clients. I'm going to go fish wherever I need to fish to find fish. I don't believe in zones or owning water. If I put the time on the water and find it, or if someone in my network that, if we put the time in and we find a spot, we have the right to fish that, whether it's, north or south of where we normally like to fish or normally are seen fishing. If you put the time in to find fish, go at them. That's how I feel about it. So.
I agree.
Well, looking ahead to this season, this spring, this summer, what are some of the things you're looking forward
to? Man, Topwater. If anyone's listened to me on any of these podcasts before, they know that I very much enjoyed Topwater, almost more so than I like catching them on a fly rod. Just because there's nothing more fun than, maybe throwing out 50 casts on a Topwater and you're like, oh man, today's gonna be slow. And then all of a sudden one just smashes your Topwater and you're like, all right,
fun.
Here we go.
Fun. So have over the winter into the spring, have you found any, I keep talking about this time of year I'm talking about. I don't know why I keep bringing it up. I'll try not to anymore because I'm sure y'all know at this point. Have you stumbled upon any new topwater baits that you like, that you're fishing, any colors or anything like that? You have started painting some topwaters. Do you have any of those around you?
Well, I do have some, but I haven't been able to clear coat them yet.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I need to replace the gun that you gave me, the airbrush, because I think something's wrong with it.
Yeah,
I might owe you an airbrush.
No, I don't think you broke it. I think it was just already doing that. Every airbrush I've had, I really think it's the air compressor, man.
Yeah, it might be. It very well might be. It's a little small. But yeah, no, I painted like 4 or 5 before it kind of died off. But yeah, I mean, I was mainly gonna paint some for some of the guys going up to the Roanoke for stripers and whatnot, and just give them to them to test out and see if they worked. But I think overall, for me, there's like 2 or 3 colors that I really like.
Yeah.
And the models that I get those in are generally the She-Dog, the one knocker, and the top dog, junior, top dog junior. And the colors that I like are pink, orange, and white. I think it's really hard to go with like orange and black in dirty water, like tannic stained water.
Kind of river estuary water type of deal.
River-ish water. White, I think, kind of works in either clear water and
a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, white just in general is a color that just tends to work no matter what the water clarity is.
Agreed.
And then what did I say? Pink. Yeah, pink. Pink I like. I don't use it a ton in really dirty water. I've had really good days on it in clear water or like milky, kind of like greenish water. And I've had good days on it in like not really tannic water, but not really the clear water.
Okay.
Just kind of that in between water.
Gotcha.
But I think pink is just a good color overall. I think it would work just fine in muddy water. I just tend to throw something that has a little bit of gold on it. Yeah. When I like river water.
I'm with you on that. Pink's a color I throw it sometimes, but man, I don't pick it up enough. And I oftentimes when I'm fishing with you or Mike or Jeff, y'all got a pink topwater on, and it's a good color, man. I think it resembles the water that it's in real well, kind of like a white. It takes a tone. I don't even know how to explain this, but it takes a similar tone to the watercolor that it's in based off of the sun and the color. Just noticed that through some video and stuff like that I've taken of topwater plugs. But man, it's fun. I do really enjoy the topwater. I'm with you. I like topwater fishing, but something about sight fishing. It doesn't have to be a fly rod, doesn't have to be a spinner. I don't care what it is, but it can be a topwater. But something about just sliding that bait across a redfish's nose and whack, just watching them pop it. I cannot get enough of that, especially with the topwater.
I'm with you.
And Michael is one of those dudes who like will sight fish with the topwater so much, and I'm always like nervous, dude. I'm scared to do it.
I can't do that.
Yeah, it'll work sometimes, but man, and I mean he makes it work. He freaking makes it work. He caught a striper behind Lee Island the other day on the topwater plug, throwing it at some redfish, and so that was pretty crazy. But
the thing that I love about topwater is one, it's not like it's a little less pressure. Like, especially if you're taking someone fishing, it's a little less like, oh man, I need to find them. Where are they at? And you're just like, that grass point looks good.
Yeah.
That grass point looks good. And we'll just mosey along and hit all these points. But there is something really satisfying about you get to like somewhere that just looks amazing. And you're like, oh man, there's definitely going to be one there.
Yeah, for sure.
Throw it there, and then all of a sudden it gets blown up, and you're like, "Damn, I knew it."
So tell me this: what would be your main feature you're looking for to throw a topwater at, besides a redfish itself?
I would say bays are what I start with.
Okay.
And then once I'm in some sort of bay or a more open body of water.
A bay being like a big open body of water, maybe a cove,
maybe
some type of area that's not like high current flow, maybe.
Right.
Okay.
It could be the side of an island. It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
This is a little more open. I don't have a ton of luck. Throwing topwaters in like little creeks, for instance. Right. But what I like to look for is points, because points generally will have oysters on them, and redfish, trout, what have you. Any sort of predatory fish likes to hide behind structure.
Yeah. Because
it's an easier way for them to attack whatever they're going to be eating. So generally speaking, grass points are a good spot to throw your topwater across and then bring it back. You don't really want to land it like ideally you wouldn't want to land it right on the point, because if that's where they're sitting, you just landed your topwater right on top of them. Very good chance you might spook them. Throwing it like 10 feet past the point and then dragging it past the point, for me, has generally worked best. And then when there is points, a lot of times there's also those little scalloped out bays.
Right.
Which is another good place for them to be. I'll work the whole edge of that bay. And then a spot that I always get excited about is if one of those bays has a little bit of not real thick marsh grass, but more kind of broken up marsh grass. And sometimes you can get your topwater in that grass and snake it through there without it getting too caught up.
Yeah.
A lot of fish just thrown into some of that sparse grass.
Most definitely.
Pull it out.
Yeah, it's nice when you can pull into a spot where you can get a long cast and keep it in a productive zone for like a long period of time. I think that's what you get out of those points and those bays and those scalloped coves, just a longer retrieve in the strike zone, if that makes sense. You get in those little creeks, I think it could happen in there too. I mean, I've caught redfish in little creeks, but like you're saying, not like you do in the bays. It's you're that depth's correct, that bottom, contour and structure is correct for maybe a longer stretch. You're having more productive casts. And that's what you're always looking for, blind casting, is an area where you can keep, if you're going to make a blind cast, I want to keep that bait in an area that a fish could be in for a long period of time. Like blind casting, the best blind casting this summer, man, is like a topwater or a spinnerbait. If I can get in like a big bay with that flooded grass, but pull right beside it and have that one angler throwing, if they can cast and the wind's not bad, just bringing that bait a foot off the grass the whole way back to you, all the way back at a higher time. Man, I've had some silly days. So many predatory fish will put themselves right on that. It's like a highway for bait to travel. They get on the edge of that grass. So
yeah, because especially that the grass that's a little more open. If you've ever like motored up close to it or pulled through it on a higher tide, that's where a lot of bait goes.
Yep.
They all are going into the grass to hide and to be safe and get away from.
Definitely. Even the redfish are hiding in there sometimes. Dolphins and boats and sharks and whatnot.
Exactly. So kind of have the best of both worlds there. The bait's there as well as.
When they can hide with their food source.
Yeah. If I was a redfish, that's where I'd be.
Definitely. If you're not throwing a topwater in the summer, you're out there blind casting. What's another bait that you find yourself gravitating towards?
You mentioned it a little earlier. Definitely a spinnerbait.
You're a big pop and cork guy, though, too, aren't you? In those same kind of conditions.
I do like.
If you're blind casting.
I used to like it when I was blind casting, but after some period of time, I was like, man, you can't really. It's hard to cover a lot of ground.
You got to work a little slower.
You got to work it slower. If I know, this is what I like to do. If I know an area where, let's say it's summer, I've had this 300-yard stretch of bank that I've had multiple blowups on in the summer on a topwater early in the morning. If it's like mid-morning and I feel like the topwater bite's going to start kind of turning off, I'll throw a pop and cork.
Gotcha.
I don't love prospecting with a pop and cork.
You want to put it in a zone that's already 50% productive.
Yeah, you want to. I feel like I want to have some confidence that there is some fish there, or there has been some fish there before I start throwing a pop and cork. Not to say it's not. It is a good, just blind casting thing to do.
Right.
Because loud, it gets their attention, and if they're not hitting on the surface anymore, you got the perfect little, voodoo shrimp sitting 2 feet under the surface.
Yeah.
And I like to scent that thing up, make it a little.
What flavor do you like?
I just put the shrimp.
Gotcha.
The shrimp
Gotcha.
juice on it.
Man, I like the point you made of like, it's important. Like one of them, yeah, perfect. Procure shrimp flavor. It's also good on any type of food in the kitchen. So much of fishing and being productive on the water is knowing where to fish slow and knowing where to fish fast. And an area that just because you shouldn't fish it slow doesn't mean you shouldn't fish it. You're going to find stuff and you're going to catch fish in zones. You might be like, all right, I always catch one on this bank. I always have 2 or 3 blowups on this bank. It's, quarter of a mile long. It's in the river, but it's too long to slow down and really pick apart, but I know I can trolling motor down it in 10 minutes and throw the topwater plug and catch a fish or two, and knowing where to pick a spot apart and really sit on it and park on it, whether you're sight fishing or blind casting, knowing where to work through it a little bit quicker until you maybe bump a fish or get a blow up, and then you're like, okay, this is where the school is. It's just reading those little cues and not wasting your time. I feel like a lot of anglers' issues are that they just get in an area that feels fishy, or maybe they got a bite and they just camp there and camp there and camp there. Like, even if I got the most aggressive bite on the very first cast in an area, if I go 10 more minutes without a bite there, I'm moving, like most definitely moving. Really 3 to 5 minutes if I'm throwing an artificial, which I know it can be a downfall sometimes, but I feel like more times than not, wouldn't you agree that can help you be more productive, not getting too married to a zone?
No, I agree, because like, let's say it's the same example. You work a bank, you get a blow up first cast, doesn't connect. You throw, 10 more times, 15 more times, and nothing happens. There's a good chance that might have been the only fish on that bank, and he went to try and eat it. And, so a lot of times I feel like when redfish come up and try and eat a topwater and they miss, they'll kind of they'll scoot off.
Yeah, they don't like it. They're very uncomfortable with themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, very few times in my life have I gotten a blow up, casted 15 more times, not gotten a blow up, and then sat there for another hour and caught, more than maybe 2 fish.
Yeah.
In the summer, right?
Definitely.
'Cause they're just so much more spread out. I mean, you'll find pockets that have a lot more fish than others, but I would say, 80% of the time, they're just so much more spread out. You're not gonna catch one on topwater on the point, throw it there again, and catch 5 more.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually.
And another thing that's important about throwing a topwater or any type of search bait throughout the summer is understanding how fish move through an area. Just because you can't see them, it's important to look at satellite imagery or just get in an area at a low tide, figure out where those fish are, and kind of understand the path of how these fish are moving up into an area, moving up into a grass bank, a grass flat, moving along a creek onto a flat, onto oyster beds. And if you can kind of fish along with those fish as they transition through a zone, some fish are going to go lay up in grass at high tide, but a lot of the fish and the more, I see that more around topsail and riceful and figure 8. These fish moving up and laying up in dead end pockets, still aggressive bites, and will still choke a topwater plug. But when I get into that more brackish water, they still hunt really hard at high tide. They'll still work banks. I think about down in the mid river and lower Cape Fear River. Fishing these banks that were sight fishing on a high tide or on a low tide, going in there and pitching baits up on them at a high tide where I can't see anything. But all of a sudden, if I've got bait fishing clients, I got 4 or 5 rods out. Mm-hmm. And at low tide, it was pods of 10, 15 fish at a time moving down the bank and getting shots at them. And all of a sudden, all 5 rods go off within like 2 minutes. I know that was just a group of fish that moved through that zone. So understanding how they're working an area, putting into play what you've seen at low tide, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't at high tide, but that can just be really beneficial to think about when you're targeting these fish at a higher tide.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I don't know. It's a lot. The blind casting, it's a lot tougher to learn because and to wrap your head around, because there's so much unseen. When it's sight fishing, you can put a lot together pretty quickly because you can see so much of it. But what do you feel like? What do you prefer to guide? Would you rather guide an epic day of topwater fishing or an epic day of sight fishing?
In the summer?
Yeah.
Man. Probably an epic day of sight fishing.
Some of those days though, man, when it's super cloudy but slick calm, and you're like, oh yeah, the topwater ride's gonna be on. Yeah. That can be pretty fun too, because the surprise of it, like you said at the beginning.
Well, so sight fishing is fun. I mean, I agree with you. Overall, I think sight fishing is more fun, just because there's nothing better than seeing a redfish, or seeing a redfish and watching it eat your bait. Right?
For sure.
There's nothing better. But man, just like seeing a massive redfish like start waking up behind your topwater, you're like, oh, here he comes, here he comes, here he comes, and smash. That's hard to beat too. I don't know.
That is hard to beat.
I'm a little torn.
I think people are either addicted to the bite, like the actual action of the fish eating, or what I think I'm addicted to is watching the fish decide to eat. So like seeing the fish doing its thing and then see the lure and like, oh man, like that little split second of time of like when he kind of changes his course of action, all of a sudden this new thing was introduced in front of him and he's like, I'm going to eat that. Whether it's a topwater plug, even that wake, you haven't seen the fish, but all of a sudden you see this wake up to the topwater plug, like almost like that more than the blow up, because it's that little bit of anticipation is so incredible.
I'm with you, man. It's hard to beat watching them eat. I took a guy fishing a couple weeks ago, and there was a redfish 70 yards down the bank that was belly crawling down, and he would come up on the bank, eat something for like a couple seconds and come off, and then get a little closer and come up on the bank and eat something and then come off. And it was so much anticipation.
That's the best.
Here he comes, here he comes. Get ready. And it was like he put the fly right when the fish got, 20 yards from the boat, he put the fly right where it needed to be, and he ate it. And man, we were hugging, we were giving high fives, we were having a great time.
That's awesome. That's so fun, man. And so often, man, it's like there's that right amount of pre-game time, if that makes sense. If you get too much of it, you blow it every time. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you don't have enough of it, you oftentimes blow it. But when you get that like sweet amount of like, all right, you see me, he's coming on the bank. All right, hold tight. All right, get ready, cast. When it's that like 5-10 seconds, it's good. But when it's that like 30 seconds to a minute of like watching him come down the bank, I don't care if it's the best fly cast you've ever seen in your entire life. They're like, at that point, already caught the fish 10 times in their head, and then they just throw an awful cast. Whether it's you, me, a client, anybody. It's so tough.
Think about it.
It's a lot of time to think about it. And then usually it's something stupid too. It's like you're standing on your line. You get a cast, you're standing on your line, or it's tangled around the trolling motor. So.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But other than what I say, topwaters,
spinnerbaits
for summer, I'd say, the spinnerbait is more like a tannic water or a brackish water type of bait.
For sure.
But a bait for me that has worked really well in kind of all situations or all water clarities is just like power fishing a paddle tail.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything with it. All you got to do is cast it out, hold your rod like that, and just reel it in.
Slow roll it.
And the cool thing about the paddle tail, I guess as well as the spinnerbait, but probably more so the paddle tail, is you catch everything.
For sure.
Redfish, you catch trout, you catch a lot of flounder.
Or at least the paddle tail is crazy.
Flounder.
It's one of the most diverse baits, for sure.
Yeah, and you can sight fish with it. That would, out of the three, paddle tail, spinnerbait, and topwater, I would feel most comfortable sight fishing a paddle tail.
For sure. I think the one thing you deal with and saying, let's say topwater, spinnerbait, paddle tail, is the amount of presence those baits have in the water. So topwater being that's the only downfall of your paddle tail blind casting, and still a great bait. Sometimes you have too much presence. Sometimes it's spooking fish when you get too much presence. But by that I mean like a topwater, I feel like has maybe probably a 10-foot radius. Would that be the right term?
Yeah.
Around the topwater, 10 feet in any direction. That's radius, right?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. A spinnerbait, maybe like a 8 foot, 5-6 foot.
I guess I don't know. It would be interesting to do like a put some goggles on a pretty muddy water day and have someone cast a spinnerbait by and see how far away you could see the flash of the
For
Gulf
sure.
light on it.
For sure. It's that, and that's a cool bait. And a lot of times people just think of it as flash, but with the lateral lines that a fish has, studies show that they can feel that vibration as much as they can hear a topwater plug, if not more, if not hear that more or feel that more. So the topwater, man, it's just that. It's funny that they even eat a topwater, because the redfish, if you look at the way they're designed, they are not designed to eat up. I think that's why their blowups are so aggressive and sloppy. That's why you have them like on the chin all the time and the side of the face.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
But yeah, and then a paddle tail I would say maybe like 2 foot, 3 foot, and it depends on water clarity too. That's a average based off of a specific water color, or water clarity, but and all those can be super effective. They're all great baits, all really great baits to fish. Like Cameron said, and topwater as well. I mean, you will catch a flounder every once in a while on topwater, but not often. So that's the one fish. Black drum you're not going to catch. Have caught black drum with paddle tails, but I don't know.
I've caught one black drum on topwater in my whole life.
You've caught a black drum on topwater?
One.
Here?
Yeah, here.
I don't know if I've ever caught one on topwater.
But it was not a monster by any means.
Yeah, still crazy. I didn't even know that ever happened. I think it's crazy that it's a small one. I could imagine like a big school of floaters in Louisiana might eat a topwater. Maybe, if you just let it sit still, but that's crazy. Do you have a picture to prove it?
I'll have to ask Todd. I was with Todd.
You're with Todd. I mean, I believe you. I just want to throw it up here. If you had it, I was going to say shoot it over to me. But man, summer's here. Or if not here, just around the corner. What are the specific flounder regulations here in North Carolina? Do you know exactly what they are?
Yes. I know it's one per person these days.
One per person. And do we have an 8-day season maybe?
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Write a comment on the YouTube video, or write a comment on the just leave a comment on the YouTube video if you know what it is. I've read it and I've completely forgotten what the season is. So, and is there something about grouper being closed for 8 years or something like that? Someone was saying.
That's a rumor.
That's a rumor. It's not real.
That might come true, but that I've heard the same thing. But I don't know if that's actually a discussion that's happening or not.
Gotcha. Well, man, thanks for hopping on here and chatting with me tonight, guys. Thank y'all so much for being part of the Eastern Current family. Thankful for your patience for this podcast that you've been waiting quite a while for. I looked at YouTube and I have not put anything on YouTube in 55 days. And that's going to change. It's been a very, very busy, very, very busy time. But we are here to bring y'all some more good fishing content. And we're really going to up the production and the quality of the podcast as well as the YouTube stuff as we move into our new space over the next couple months. But as all...
My video is grainy?
Do what?
Are you trying to say my video is grainy?
Yeah, Cameron's video is grainy. I had to keep his video. I was on a side-by-side video the whole time because his lighting is so terrible. But that's why you should just listen to the podcast. But if you listen to the podcast, it wouldn't be quite as bad. You'd hear these audio levels changing like crazy because I can't sit still. But that's all something we're going to take care of over the next few months as we move into our new space. Guys, as always, thank you so much. Let us know what y'all want to hear us talk about throughout this season, and we will see y'all in the next episode. Later.